In June, the peak body for Australia's super funds published a poll. 42% of Australians think they need more than $1 million in super to retire comfortably. The same organisation says the number is 630,000. And the median Australian aged 60 to 64 has $236,126 if he is a man. $174,655 if she is a woman. Hi, this is Behind the Money. 3 numbers: what we think we need, what we are told we need, and what we have actually got. Every one of them is real, and no two of them agree. So I went and pulled all 3 apart. Start with the poll, because it is the strangest of the 3. 42% of Australians believe they need to crack $1 million. Break it down by age and it gets stranger. Of Australians aged 25 to 34, more than half, 51%, think they will need over $1 million in today's money. Nearly a quarter think they will need more than 2. And notice which way it runs. The closer people get to actually retiring, the smaller the number gets. By the time you are 65 and over, only 29% still think you need $1 million. The people who are furthest away are the most frightened. ASFA's chief executive, Mary Delahunty, put it this way: when households feel the pressure of grocery, petrol and energy bills climbing, people naturally assume that retirement will cost a fortune. That is a reasonable thing to assume. It is just not what the numbers say. So what does $630,000 actually buy? The benchmark almost everyone quotes is the ASFA retirement standard. For a single person, $630,000. For a couple, $730,000. But a lump sum on its own is meaningless. What it is built from is an annual budget. $55,923 a year for a single homeowner. $78,566 for a couple. And that budget comes loaded with 4 assumptions that nobody repeats when they repeat the number. You retire at 67. You own your home outright. You live to about 85. And you spend the entire balance, drawing it down to 0, topped up by a part-age pension as it shrinks. That last one matters more than the others. $630,000 is not the number before the pension. It is. The number after the pension is already counted in. And if you are renting, none of it applies. ASFA itself notes that younger Australians increasingly expect to still be renting or paying off a mortgage in retirement. ASFA also publishes the path where you should be at each age to land on $630,000. At 40, $98,500. At 50, $248,500. At 55, $342,000. At 60, $449,500. One caveat, and it is ASFA's own. That path assumes you are earning $100,000 a year. Plenty of people never see $100,000 in a single year of their lives. So hold that thought. This is the generous path. So how close is anyone? This is the Australian Taxation Office. Not a survey, not a model. Every superannuation account in the country counted. At 50 to 54, the median man has $192,196. The path says he should have $248,500. At 55 to 59, he has $220,560. The path says $342,000. At 60 to 64, the last stop before retirement, he has $236,000. The path says $449,500. He does not catch up. The gap widens every decade, and it widens fastest at the end, exactly when there is no time left to fix it. Against the target, the median 60 to 64-year-old man has 37% of it. For women it is worse. 174,655. 28%. The gap between men and women is 26%, and it opens in the 40s and never closes. Lower pay, more part-time work, and years taken out to raise children, compounding quietly across a whole career. One honest note about that number, because it is the kind of thing that gets glossed over. It is a median, not an average. The average is much higher, but averages get dragged upward by a small Number of very large balances. If you want to know what a normal person has, you want the median. So why is the number so far off? Here is where it gets interesting, because the obvious answer is wrong. The obvious answer is that people did not save enough. They were careless. They should have contributed more. Now look at what they were actually promised. On the 15th of May, 1995, Paul Keating, the Prime Minister who built this system, gave a lunch speech in Perth. It is a public document. Anyone can read it. And this is what he said. By the year 2002, everyone in the country will be putting 15% of their wages and salaries away. 15%. By 2002. Not 12. Not in 2025. The plan was 3 parts. 9% from your employer, 3% from you, and 3% paid in out of a round of tax cuts. And then he did the sum out loud. Someone on average earnings $33,000 a year in 1995 would finish their working life with $470,000 and an income of $30,000 a year on top of it. That was the deal. In March 1996, the government changed. The tax cuts that were going to fund one of those 3% were withdrawn. The unions then pulled the employee 3% they had agreed to in exchange. 6 percentage points. Gone. What was left was the 9. It reached 9% in 2002, exactly on schedule, and then it stopped. It sat at 9 for 11 years. In 2012 it was legislated to climb to 12. 2 years later, the Abbott government froze it at 9.5 instead. It stayed frozen for 7 years. 12%, the number in every super ad you have ever seen, arrived on the 1st of July, 2025. 14 months ago. So think about who is retiring right now. Someone turning 65 this year started work around 1980. 12 years before compulsory super existed at all. They were promised 15% and a $470,000 retirement. They got 9. The median balance is not small because those people were careless. It is small because the thing they were promised was never actually built. So is everyone about to be destitute? No, and I want to be careful here, because this is where videos like this usually start lying to you. There is a pension. From the 20th of September, the full age pension for a single person is $1,237.70 a fortnight, about $32,000 a year. Set that against the comfortable budget of $55,923, and the pension alone covers just under 60% of it. Your balance covers the rest. And here is the quote I keep coming back to, because it is from ASFA's own chief executive, in the very same release as that frightening poll. Retirement generally costs less than working life. Retirees pay no tax on superannuation pension income after 60. Most own their home outright. Work-related costs disappear, and concessions reduce the price of energy, medicines, transport and council rates. All of that is true. The peak body of the superannuation industry is telling you that you probably need less than you fear. Both things are true at once. $1 million is not the number, and $236,000 is still a long way under the number that is. There is a version of this video that ends with tips. Salary sacrifice, check your fees, consolidate your accounts. Those things are real. If you are 30, they matter enormously, and 12% across a whole career is a genuinely different system from the one that produced these numbers. But if you are 55, that is not advice. That is a receipt. The useful thing here is not a tip. It is knowing which number is actually yours. Not the million everyone is frightened of. Not the average, which belongs to someone else. The median, and the distance between it and a target written for someone with a paid-off house and a $100,000 salary. That distance was not an accident, and it was not a personal failing. It was a decision made in 1996 that you were never asked about. $470,000 was the promise. $630,000 is the target. $236,000 is the country. If this was useful, subscribe to Behind the Money. Every week I take one number the whole country repeats, and show you what is underneath it. I'll see you in the next one.